one of the things I recommend is having your options open. Don't like the moment you try like putting like things into like a box where you're like, oh, I'm looking for, you know, this person with a, like I only like redheads and like she's got to be, under 150 pounds, or the 6 foot rule, right? That a lot of people have is just like, if he's 6 foot tall, the guy's short, right? Um, and so or like, he has to have this specific job. It's those expectations that you kind of set you up can be like unrealistic,
Right.
where you're kind of painting the person into a specific box. And by doing that, you're just going to be limiting yourself. And so just be open, because that was one of the things is like, I never expected someone like Alexis to love, but at the same time, here I am. I'm happier than ever. Alexis would probably say is just that she didn't expect herself to be with such a hopeless romantic
Oh my God.
as I am. And so, she kept her options open, and I kept my options open, and that's how we were both, able to find each other and actually really love each other, because we're both accepting of not only each other but the possibilities. Definitely, like, work as like a single person. This is now is the time to like work on your emotional intelligence, because if you're not aware of like what ticks you, or what emotions you feel and how they make you feel and how they make you react, then when you put that into a relationship, you can kind of end up hurting the relationship in of itself.
Yeah. And I would just jump in to say emotional intelligence and emotional availability are two things I've learned in therapy to be. You can have someone who's very emotional intelligent, but the availability of those emotions are hidden or just not being shown. And I think that's just one of the things that it kind of goes hand in hand as well, like during that time of like where you're just like casually dating, just trying to understand and take care of yourself, really like improving on your self-care and stuff. That's definitely one of the things to start looking into, that I have learned over just the past couple of years as well.
One thing for single person is don't look for what to expect, is don't look for someone that fits your, like what you think is your true love, but look for someone who's actually willing to be receptive and accept your love language. That's the big thing. That's what to look for. Don't look for like specific looks or occupation or, quirks or even interests, because, Alexis and I have different interests, and it gives us more to learn and explore, because if we were both having the same interests, then it's just such superficial.
Everyone's relationship is going to be different. It's like health, finances, it's going to be different for each person. Like one person's advice is not going to be another person's advice, and it's not going to be another person's advice. So like, I think just doing a lot of like cautious exploration into understanding oneself is definitely a key importance here. And just like, of course, like everyone's relationship may seem successful, may seem great, but there's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of other stuff that, maybe one person's like, that's not something I can do, that it just looks completely different.
Don't be afraid to talk about finances too. That's the last thing.
Not even finances, just all the big questions: finances, politics, marriage, kids, like families, like in-laws, like big world dreams, like all the big topics. You have to have these conversations before you really want to get serious with people. I highly recommend. They can take this if they want, but I highly recommend everyone talk about like all the big kind of important topics out there for relationships.
I think we talked about that before I even said I love you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One point where before we really wanted to like start exclusively dating, where he sort of had to, he calls it an interview. I really just wanted to sit down and talk about very important things and make it very clear. But it came off as an interview, which we'll talk about later.
Which is one of the things I love about her.
So we had an interview sort of date where we kind of talked about some very important things that I wanted to make sure we kind of clear the air before moving forward. And then after we started exclusive dating, it was a few months after that where we started talking about just religion, politics, what other things, like kids, like futures, like dream jobs, dream careers,
finances
a little bit of finances as well, that sort of thing. And then like, you know, I think just different situations come up that bring up also these topics as well. So they just kind of casually happen every now and then on just like different scenarios, like when he met my family, when I met his, understanding family dynamics as well, like his family dynamics, my family dynamics, that sort of thing, and how that's going to play into our future. All those, you know, I think some of these are just kind of like organically came up and were casual conversations that we just happened to start really talking about, and others were kind of a little bit more structured, where before we kind of move past this point of relationship, we kind of talk about those things.
Okay.
So basically there's no set time, just whenever you feel the
yes,
whenever you feel like there's something there worth keeping, it's best to ask these questions.
More of a subjective feeling sort of thing. So
because if you just hold them off, then it can really end up just biting you in the end.
You know, when you start really talking about like marriages, babies, moving in together, all these other, you know, kind of like the big monuments, or not monuments, but moments in like relationships. When you start like kind of before you start getting into those like really big moments, like meeting the parents, meeting family members, all that sort of thing, whatever those moments you kind of define, big moments can be like different from everyone, but basically once you get to like, before you kind of get past those different moments or milestones, I'll say, start having those conversations if possible, especially when you're starting feeling like long-term, kind of like Adam said, this is something that you want to keep, you want to hold on to, you don't want to let go. So
because it's these difficult topics that are kind of hard to talk about that really establish that foundation for those big monuments, like those big milestone moments. And so if you're not having those can easily crumble away when, you know, you find out the other person has a different political belief, or you know, and they have these kind of finances, and then all of a sudden you're taken back, I love you. So
yeah,
it's better to kind of have these conversations before you can just commit to those moments where
you saw it a lot of times, even with the Donald Trump and Biden election. You saw a lot of like family members and like relationships just kind of like, you know, my boyfriend, my girlfriend is like conservative, they voted for Donald Trump, and they're like feeling a different way now because they realize they never had those conversations about like political ideologies and such. And, you know, let's say they've been with that person for like years, or they have like, you know, children, or they're getting ready married, or they bought a house together, and now they're second guessing themselves as to like, do I really know this person? And I'm like, maybe you didn't, because you didn't have those conversations. So that was just like, you know, one example I just like brought up, but it's just what like one of the more common things that happened, at least recently, that we saw regarding a lot of families and relationships.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, like you saw like, you know, intermediate family members not talking, not speaking. You saw like, you know, people saying certain in-laws would act a certain way about the virus, that didn't like, they didn't believe in the same you know, ideologies of, you know, health and safety. And they're like, I don't want those people around my family anymore. And, you know, you just start like having a new perspective on these things, where you know, these weren't discussed. And sometimes, you know, like no one really thought of like, you know, the pandemic was a, you know, was a surprise for everyone. So no one
Yeah.
was really, you know, that wasn't a question for us as to like, do you believe in vaccines? You know, there are some things in life that are just going to be thrown at you that you just wouldn't have thought to like have those questions. And I think that's where having an open box, open-minded approach, like Adam said, is also kind of like comes into play there. But I think getting over more of the most common kind of questions and topics that generally happen for everyone in most lifetimes. I think those are kind of like a good stepping stone, at least to begin with. And then things like the vaccine, you know, politics, presidents, you know, different political event, or different events that happen in life that are kind of subjective. It's no like right or wrong type of thing. I think those are just stuff that you'll have to just like smooth out in relationships and just kind of put that hard work in.